Έχουμε μαζί μας τον κύριο Istvan Fritsche, portfolio manager της ING για τις αγορές ομολόγων αναδυόμενων χωρών. Κύριε Fritsche, ποια είναι τα βασικά χαρακτηριστικά της συγκεκριμένης αγοράς ομολόγων?
Well, EMD markets are characterized by access to many countries' debt, sovereign debt issued in hard currency, for instance, or local debt issued by local governments in local currency. But you also have a very fast-growing hard currency corporate sector as well. You can think about, for instance, in Russia, Gazprom, or Brazil, Petrobras. There are many companies who are very strong and can issue in hard currency. But they also issue in local currency typically, but that market, the local currency corporate market, is somewhat smaller and less accessible to foreign investors.
Η αγορά ομολόγων βρίσκεται τα τελευταία 2 χρόνια στο επίκεντρο λόγω της κρίσης χρέους της Ευρωζώνης. Πώς έχει αυτό επηρεάσει την αντίληψη των επενδυτών και μπορούμε πια να πούμε ότι τα ομόλογα, το κρατικό χρέος είναι ασφαλές?
Public debt in general can be described as safe, definitely on the emerging market debt side, because typically these governments, these countries have very strongly reformed their monetary and fiscal policies. They're very disciplined after the crises they have been gone through. You can think about the Russian crisis, the Asian crisis, the Mexico crisis, Argentina crisis, and the last 10 years these countries have really redeveloped and restructured their institutionalizational part of the fiscal and monetary areas, but also the central banks have implemented inflation targeting regimes. Together with very low debt to GDP ratios, very healthy fiscal balances, and also balanced or even positive balance of payments. Emerging markets possess 75% of FX reserve, global FX reserves. All these givens are favouring emerging market debt. Because these countries will definitely be able to pay back the money investors have lent to them.
Ποιες είναι οι επιδόσεις των ομολόγων των αναδυόμενων αγορών και ποιοι είναι οι επενδυτές που τα επιλέγουν?
Well, in generally speaking, emerging market debt has a hard currency part and a local currency part. On the hard currency part, you typically invest because you believe in the creditworthiness of the countries improving. And which they do, and there are very attractive opportunities to sort of invest, for instance, in countries like Argentina, Venezuela, and on the local currency side also their governments are very strong in terms of repaying their debt, and more institutional investors are now thinking about adding to their portfolios in a structural fashion rather than opportunistically. So what you will see is an increase in dedicated investors in these markets, which actually will further support the already relatively attractive risk-return characteristics.
Γιατί είναι διαφορετική η συγκεκριμένη αγορά ομολόγων? Είναι όλα θέμα ραγδαίας οικονομικής ανάπτυξης?
Well, definitely the growth is very important. I mean, emerging markets are really growing. The middle classes are growing. With the middle classes, the capital markets are growing in breadth and depth. These countries have a catch-up, route ahead of them. There is a convergence, sort of trade, so to speak, out in the global markets. In terms of emerging markets catching up with the developed markets. So you really want to benefit from that growth trajectory when you invest in emerging market debt. But also don't forget that typically since the policies of these countries have been to grow, they have on average kept their FX rates relatively low. As opposed to the US dollar and the euro currencies, for instance, and that means that you potentially can also benefit from. We estimate a 2 to 3% average annual increase appreciation of FX, and also on the rate side, governments are building out the curves, and it's going to become more and more attractive to invest in the yield curves of local government debt.
Ποιο είναι το μέλλον της συγκεκριμένης αγοράς τα επόμενα χρόνια? Πιστεύετε ότι οι επενδυτές θα συνεχίζουν να επιλέγουν χρέος αναδυόμενων χωρών?
We typically think that, from a fundamental perspective, emerging markets are very, very sound. We think that for emerging market debt, the technical situation, meaning the demand-supply dynamics, are very, very robust. We also think that the valuations are very attractive still. The question remains, how long will valuations remain attractive? Because once, obviously, very, very many institutional investors, for instance, will actually allocate structurally, the value might be squeezed out. But currently we believe that emerging market debt is in a sweet spot, definitely for this year and perhaps even for next year to come. And then, obviously, it's very hard to sort of predict further future developments. But the basic idea is really that from a medium and longer term perspective, these emerging market countries will grow further and their fundamental variables are very, very strong and robust.
Τέλος, πείτε μας ποιες είναι οι χώρες που παρουσιάζουν το μεγαλύτερο ενδιαφέρον και γιατί.
Well, we tend to, across hard currency and local currency strategies, we tend to like Russia currently a lot. And then sometimes we tend to deviate in terms of our views on, for instance, Brazil and hard currency or local currency, whereas on hard currency we think that Brazil's spreads are just trading less attractively, they're very, very expensive.